I used to think the worst pain was being yelled at, but it's not. The real pain is being invisible in the house you grew up in, watching your sister praised like she was made of gold, while you were treated like air. The day my mother told me, "You don't deserve help," something inside me didn't break. It awakened. And the life I built after that, they never saw it coming. Childhood in the shadows. In the Brooks household, Lena was the sun everyone revolved around. From the moment she could walk, she had a dazzling presence zone of those children who seemed to glow without trying. Teachers adored her. Neighbors praised her. At family gatherings, aunts pinched her cheeks and told her she was destined for something great. And then there was Mila. Mila, who learned to read early, who stayed late after school because she genuinely loved spending time in the library. Mila, who remembered birthdays, who washed dishes without being asked, who listened when people spoke no because she wanted recognition, but because she was thoughtful, curious, gentle. Yet somehow, all of that translated into less exciting, less impressive, less worthy of the spotlight. Her parents never said it outright. They rarely had to. It was in the small things, the tone, the expressions, the choices. At the dinner table, their mother would lean forward, eyes shining with pride. "Lena won first place in art class today. Isn't she incredible?" Her father would ask follow-up questions, clapping Lena on the shoulder. "That's my girl, always shining." Then there would be a brief pause, like a formality. "And you, Mila? How was school?" Mila would say something quietly, something she was actually excited about. "I got the highest score on the science test," or "My teacher said I write really well." But the reaction was always the same polite nod, a faint smile that never reached the eyes. "That's good, honey." And then the conversation circled back to Lena, as if Mila's words simply dissolved into the air. So Mila learned silence. She learned that sometimes the world loves loudness, sparkle, applause. And she learned that some children, no matter how deeply they feel or how hard they try, are told without words that they are background characters in their own home. One autumn afternoon, when the maples on Crestwood Lane were spilling orange leaves across the sidewalks, the sisters had walked home from school. The air smelled like distant chimney smoke and the sun slanted warm, golden light across the rooftops. Mila clutched her newly graded essay red ink praise circling paragraphs like gentle halos. "I think Mrs. Carter really liked my story," she said, almost timidly hopeful. She said, "I have a writer's imagination." Lena, who had been humming to herself, stopped mid-step. "Oh." She tilted her head, lips curving with that effortless confidence. "That's great, but guess what? I'm being featured on the school newsletter cover for my painting." Her voice was airy, casual, yet certain that the world would be impressed. And Mila, because she had spent her life learning how to shrink, smiled and tucked her paper into her backpack where no one would see it again. They walked the rest of the way in silence. Family celebrations made these differences louder. Birthdays, holiday dinners, the annual Brooks summer barbecue. The yard would be filled with folding tables, roasting food, neighbors laughing. Their mother would guide people toward a display of Lena's artwork pinned proudly along the fence. "Look at her technique. She's only 12. Mila stood by the lemonade table, plastic cup in hand, smiling when spoken to, helping refill ice. Polite, invisible. No one note except Mrs. Caldwell, the elderly neighbor who smelled like lavender soap and always wore pearl earrings, even with gardening gloves. "You have kind eyes, Mila," she once said, touching the girl's cheek gently. Never lose that. It was the only compliment Mila remembered from that year. Kindness is quiet, and quiet things are easy to overlook. Sometimes Lena would tease, without realizing the weight of her words. "You're always reading," she'd say, flopping onto Mila's bed without knocking. "No one's going to care how much you know. People want excitement. You should try being more fun. Mila would respond softly, I am fun. But even to her own ears, the words sounded uncertain. Lena rolled onto her back, dramatic, careless. You're sweet, Mila. But life isn't about being sweet. It's about being seen. And Mila wondered, was that true? Was visibility the only route to worth? Yet the quiet ones noticed things the loud ones miss. Mila noticed when their mother cried at the kitchen sink late at night, hands trembling in dishwater. She noticed when their father's shoulders slumped under the weight of work stress he never voiced. She noticed Lena's confidence had cracked hairline fractures of insecurity hidden behind laughter. Mila didn't say anything. No one ever listened when she spoke anyway. So she held these things gently, privately, like pressed flowers between book pages. Some children grow tall by climbing toward the sun. Others grow deep roots in the shade. Both are growing. But only one is seen. Years passed, but the patterns stayed. School awards, family comparisons, opportunities offered to one sister before the other even knew they existed. Mila became skilled at folding herself smaller, slipping into rooms quietly, offering help no one acknowledged, carrying hurt with grace no one witnessed. But in the quiet of her room, she wrote. Not essays for school, not stories for grades, stories for herself, about girls who ran, girls who fought, girls who refused to disappear. Words were the only place where she existed fully. Sometimes she imagined a future where someone read her work and saw her not the reflection of her sister, not a shadow, not a background shape but her, someone who would say, I hear you, I see you, you matter. She didn't know it yet, but that future would come, and when it did, the entire story of the Brooks family would begin to shift quietly, then sharply, then unmistakably, because even the softest voice, once awakened, can shake a house to its foundation, creating value only to be unseen. Rain was almost a season of its own on Hawthorne Street. It came early, lingering in the air like a quiet, ache-soft drizzles in the morning, heavy showers in the afternoon, storms that drummed restlessly on the roof at night. And every day, Mila rode the bus through it all. Umbrella in one hand, backpack heavy on her shoulders, notebook pressed to her chest to keep dry, stood at the bus stop beside the old oak tree outside Crestwood High, waiting, sometimes for 5 minutes, sometimes for 40. The schedule was inconsistent, confusing, and for hundreds of students across the district, simply exhausting. One afternoon, soaked to the bone after yet another unpredictable delay, Mila had stood beneath the bus shelter, shivering. Her phone battery was nearly dead, the rainwater creeping beneath the case. She watched as the bus finally lumbered into view, splashing through the puddle and spraying her sneakers with muddy water. Lena, who rode home with friends in a car, had joked once, laughing over dinner, "Ugh, couldn't be me. Bus kids always look like sad stray cats." Mila had laughed too, quietly, because that was the role she knew. But on that rainy day, as she wiped her fogging glasses with her sleeve, something in her shifted not sharply like a snapped branch, but slowly, like a door that had been waiting to open. What if she didn't have to wait like this? What if no one did? When she got home, she opened her old second-hand laptop, the one she'd bought with 2 summers' worth of babysitting pay, and began searching. Transit routes, public transportation databases, GPS data logs, tutorials, API access. She stayed up past midnight for weeks. The house was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator downstairs and the occasional sound of her father clearing his throat in his sleep. Lena's laughter sometimes drifted from her room as she FaceTimed friends, bright, confident, effortless. Mila typed through it all, line after line of code, fails and fixes. Small triumphs she celebrated with no applause but her own quiet smile. And one evening, as thunder rolled like a drumline in the distance, she pressed run and the app launched. It wasn't fancy. Not yet. The colors were plain, the layout simple, but the map loaded, the bus routes displayed, And the schedule's updated in real time. She whispered to herself, breath catching in disbelief. It works. The next morning, she shared it with a few friends at school, then with the librarian, then with Mr. Ortega, the math teacher who always said her mind was sharper than she realized. Within a week, students from Crestwood, Lincoln, Westfield, and 3 other schools were using it. And then the article came. Local high school student revolutionizes public bus tracking for students. Her name printed big. Her photo frizzy hair, crooked smile, raincoat still damp. The words young innovator, initiative, and community impact scattered like confetti. Her classmates congratulated her in the hallway. A senior she barely knew high-fived her. Even the bus driver grinned and said, "Thanks, kid. You made our mornings smoother." She had felt something bloom, something warm, full, alive. So she brought the newspaper home. Mom? Dad? Mila stepped into the kitchen, still wearing her backpack, shoes squeaking on the tile. Diane was stirring pasta sauce. Richard sat at the table reading emails on his tablet. Lena lounged on the counter, scrolling her phone, jacket still on from cheer practice. Mila held up the newspaper, smile trembling with excitement. The local paper did a story about the bus app I made. They wrote, Diane didn't turn. Mila, honey, put the newspaper on the counter. I'm trying not to burn this sauce. Richard didn't look up. School project? Right? That's nice. No, it's Mila's voice caught. It's being used across 4 schools. They called it innovative. Richard hummed non-committally, tapping his tablet. Well, good for you. She tried again, a little softer, a little smaller. It took a lot of work. Lena finally glanced up, eyebrow arching. So, it's like a bus schedule? That's it? She laughed, flipping her hair back. Cute. Mila's hands tightened on the newspaper, fingers pressing creases into it. It's more than that. It updates live, and it helps people. Oh my God, Lena interrupted with a laugh. Mila, relax. You don't have to sell it. I'm sure it's super helpful to nerds who love rain and public transit. Richard chuckled. Diane finally turned from the stove, smiling at Lena's joke as if that was the accomplishment of the night. And Mila stood there, still holding her achievement, her effort, her pride, her long nights, her hope like a child offering a drawing only to watch it flutter to the floor unnoticed. The pain wasn't sharp. Not a stab. Not yet. It was slow, spreading, quiet, familiar. Being dismissed was a feeling she had learned early. But this time it hurt differently. Because she had built something. She had created value from scratch. She had changed something real. She had mattered to the world outside this house. But inside these walls, nothing. She placed the newspaper on the counter. Careful, gentle, like laying down something fragile. Then she went upstairs. Later, she heard Lena laughing on the phone again. Yeah, my sister made a bus app or something. I don't know. She's always doing these little projects. She's smart, just not the kind of smart people notice. She's more like invisible smart. There was no malice, no cruelty sharpened into a blade. Just the blind confidence of someone who never had to think about being unseen. Mila lay in bed, the rain tapping softly at her window. She stared at the ceiling, at the shadows shifting with headlights passing down the street. Invisible smart. She swallowed hard. Once, twice, a quiet ache opening in her chest. She didn't cry. She had learned not to, but her fingers curled slightly, like someone holding on to themselves. The next morning at school, more people thanked her for the app. A girl from Westfield High sent her a message. You made my mornings so much easier. Thank you. Mila typed back. I'm glad it helped. She meant it. She always meant it. But that night, she didn't bring any more accomplishments home. She didn't share updates. She didn't mention the city council reaching out to ask her to present the project. She just ate quietly, studied quietly, lived quietly. But something inside her had changed. Not broken, no, not that. It had hardened, subtly, gently, like clay left in the sun. She began to realize that there are two kinds of recognition. The kind the world gives you because you shine loudly, and the kind you earn quietly, piece by piece, when no one sees you building. One can be taken, the other cannot. Mila didn't know it, yet not fully, but she was becoming something Lena could never be, someone who did not need applause to have worth. Someone who would one day step forward not to compete, not to replace, not to demand attention, but simply to be seen. And when that day came, the Brooks household would feel it like thunder after long, aching silence. The $80,000, the final cut. The Brooks family gathered beneath warm string lights draped across the backyard. It was late summer, one of those evenings where the air was soft, cicadas hummed in the trees, and laughter floated lazily between conversations. Diane had insisted on hosting a celebration dinner. No one said what they were celebrating, but everyone sensed it had something to do with Lena. It usually did. The table was set with Diane's favorite porcelain white with gold rims. Glass pitchers of iced tea sweated in the heat. A bouquet of peonies sat centered like the evening's crown. Mila arrived straight from her part-time job at the city library, hair still smelling faintly of dust and old books, hands ink-stained from helping label the new arrivals. She took her seat quietly, as always. Richard tapped his fork against his glass, drawing attention. His voice, deep and proud, carried easily. "Everyone, thank you for coming. Diane and I have an announcement tonight, something we've hoped and dreamed about for a long time." Lena lifted her chin, already smiling. She knew. Mila, beside her, exhaled slow, not resentment yet, not bitterness, just familiar anticipation. She braced herself. Richard placed a hand on Lena's shoulder. "Our Lena has been accepted into École des Arts de Paris, one of the finest art academies in the world." The table erupted cheers, claps, a chorus of delighted voices. Their Aunt Margaret covered her mouth, eyes shining. "Paris! Oh, sweetheart! Just imagine the cafes, the galleries, the lights." Lena laughed, cheeks rosy. She played it modest, though the glow in her eyes revealed how deeply she had been waiting to be adored like this. Mila smiled, too. She was happy for her sister, truly. But there was a soft ache underneath it, a longing to be seen, to have even one thing she loved recognized like this. Diane and Richard exchanged a look, the kind of look parents give when unveiling the big surprise. "So," Diane continued, her tone bright as polished silver, "we've decided to support her fully. We are gifting her $80,000 to cover tuition and living expenses her first year. 80,000. The number dropped like stone into quiet water inside Mila's chest, but around her, joy swelled. Aunt Margaret dabbed tears. Uncle Frederick whistled. Someone toasted. To Lena, to Paris. Glasses clinked. Laughter shimmered. The world felt golden. Mila's voice, when she found it, was small but steady. I'm really proud of you, Lena." Lena squeezed her hand, a brief, careless gesture. "Thanks, Millie. I'll send you pictures from the Seine." Everyone returned to talking. Food passed. Wine poured. Someone asked about apartments near Montmartre, but Mila sat very still. She had been accepted not to Paris, not to galleries, but to the computer science program at Lakeshore University. She had worked for it, applied for scholarships, saved what she could. She wasn't asking for applause, just help, just enough to stay afloat. She waited until the moment felt natural, soft pause in conversation, the evening exhale. "Mom," she began, keeping her tone gentle, careful, calm. "I wanted to talk about school, too. I got my acceptance to Lakeshore." Diane gave a thin, polite smile. "Yes, we saw the letter." Mila nodded. "The tuition is high. Not like Paris, but still a lot. I was hoping, if there's anything left from the savings fund, Maybe some small part could go toward my first semester. I'll cover the rest. I just need help with the starting amount." Her words were respectful, honest, measured. The table quieted. Diane didn't respond immediately. She set her napkin down, smoothing it flat with deliberate care. Then she looked at Mila, really looked, but not with affection, with the distant scrutiny of someone evaluating the worth of a stranger's request. "Mila," she said slowly, as if explaining something obvious to a child. "Lena has a gift, a calling. We are investing in her future." Mila swallowed. "I know. I just need a little help for mine." Richard cleared his throat. "We didn't save enough for both, sweetheart." Mila nodded again. "I would take loans for the rest. I'm not asking for much." But Diane's next words were not financial. They were sharp, precise, final. "You haven't earned it." The sentence landed like cold steel, the clink of a fork dropping onto a plate, someone shifting uncomfortably, the cicadas outside carrying on, relentless, uncaring. Mila blinked. Her voice wavered. "What?" "You have always been average," Diane continued, voice calm, almost gentle, which made the cruelty land deeper. "You work hard, yes, but you don't shine. Not like Lena. Our support should go to the child who will make something remarkable of herself." The world tilted. Richard didn't contradict her. Lena didn't either. She just looked away, jaw tense, not from guilt, but from discomfort. The kind of discomfort that passes quickly. Mila sat very still, not because she couldn't move, but because, for the first time, she wasn't sure she wanted to. There it was. Not left unspoken, not coded in politeness, not hidden in sighs and glances. The truth she had sensed her entire life, now given shape. She did not matter here. She stood up softly. The chair legs made the smallest scraping sound against the patio stone, but it felt thunderous. "I see," she murmured. Aunt Margaret opened her mouth, maybe to protest, maybe to soften, but Mila raised a hand gently. "It's all right," she said. "Truly." She looked at them. Diane, Richard, Lena, the family that had shaped her into silence. There was no anger in her face, no tears, only clarity. "I'm going to pack tonight. I'll move into student housing early. They have space." Richard frowned. "Mila, don't be dramatic." She smiled. A soft, fragile, heartbreaking smile. "No, just done." The night air felt cooler than before. She walked inside, up the stairs, into her room, her sanctuary of worn books, scattered papers, dreams written in notebooks no one ever read. She folded clothes, packed her laptop, slipped the newspaper article about her app into the side pocket, not as proof, but as memory. When she walked back down, suitcase in hand, no one stopped her. No one said her name. The porch light flickered as she stepped out onto the street. The sky was clear, now stars faint but present. She walked toward the bus stop. The Busher bus pulled up right as she arrived, as if waiting for her. Mila boarded, sat by the window, and watched her childhood home recede behind her. She didn't cry. Something inside her had closed soft like a door that finally knew it would never be opened from the other side. She would rewrite herself elsewhere, not to prove her worth, but because she had always had it. Starting from zero, the room was barely large enough to hold a twin bed, a narrow desk, and a shelf Mila found on the curb and carried home herself. The walls were chipped, the window faced another brick wall, and when the radiator hissed at night, it sounded like someone whispering secrets through the pipes. But it was hers. Alberta Street smelled like roasted coffee, wet pavement, and bike grease. Mornings came early here. Delivery trucks rumbled down the road, shop owners lifted metal shutters, and strings of old festival lights flickered awake above the sidewalk like tired stars learning to shine again. Mila pushed open the door to Morning Finch Cafe at 5:23 a.m. every day, her hair pulled back, apron already tied. The shop was always quiet then, just her, and the soft hum of refrigerators. She would grind the beans, prep the pastry case, wipe down tables still cool from the night air. By 6 a.m., the city began to stir. "Morning, Mila," called Harper, the senior barista with purple hair and skateboard stickers all over her water bottle. Mila smiled. "Morning." Their conversations were easy. Not prying, not shallow, not heavy, just human. "You see they raised rent again down on Hawthorne?" "Yeah. Everyone's going to have to move eventually." "You staying?" "For now." Customers arrived, teachers on their way to school, nurses finishing overnight shifts, college students with headphones and undone shoelaces. Mila learned their orders, their names, their moods. The cafe smelled like cinnamon, steamed milk, and faint exhaustion warm, lived in, real. Sometimes a kid from Crestwood High came in with a backpack soaked from the rain, scrolling her bus app without knowing who created it. Mila never said a word. She just handed over the latte and said, "Stay warm out there, okay? No one applauded here, no spotlight, no comparisons, just work. Quiet and steady." And at night, after the cafe closed, after the bus ride home, after instant ramen eaten cross-legged on the floor, she opened her laptop. Her spreadsheets were meticulous, every dollar tracked. Rent, groceries, transit. The envelope of emergency cash she kept taped under her drawer. She learned how not to waste any not money, not time, not effort. Her life became a system. Wake, bus, work, learn, sleep, repeat. But it wasn't hollow. It was hers. In the evenings, she stayed up until her eyes blurred, studying advanced algorithms, open-source frameworks, cybersecurity architecture. She watched lectures twice, took notes in neat handwriting, built small projects and scrapped them when they weren't good enough, started again. Sometimes, when she reached a problem that felt impossible code that refused to cooperate, she would press her palms to her eyes and let frustration rise in her throat. But she didn't break down. She had learned long ago that pain can exist without collapse. She whispered to herself, the words steadying her breath. "You've survived worse." Then she kept going. The streetlights outside her window buzzed at night. People laughed outside bars. Someone played saxophone badly 2 buildings down. Her mattress was thin. Her back hurt more often than not. But when she closed her laptop each night, she felt something solid inside her. Growth. She was not waiting to be chosen anymore. She was choosing herself. One evening, Harper slid into the chair across from her during break, sipping a matcha latte. "You're like the most disciplined person I've ever met," Harper said, tucking a strand of purple hair behind her ear. Mila laughed softly. "I don't know about that. No, really." Harper leaned forward. "People our age are out getting drunk or starting garage bands. You're out here building your life like an architect." Mila paused. She hadn't realized anyone had noticed. "I don't think I know how to live any other way," she admitted. Harper smiled with that soft warmth of someone who sees without intruding. "Well, I'm rooting for you." Mila didn't know what to say to that. No one had ever said they were rooting for her before. She nodded. "Thank you." Winter came early that year. The rain turned to slush. Bus windows fogged with breath. Coffee orders shifted from iced to hot without needing to be asked. Money was still tight. Some nights, Mila counted change twice before buying milk. She washed her clothes in the sink when she couldn't afford the laundromat. She layered sweaters to avoid turning on the radiator. She got tired, bone-deep tired. But she never called home. Not once. There were moments when loneliness sat beside her on the bed like a quiet visitor. Moments where she wondered what it would feel like to belong somewhere, to someone, without needing to earn it. But she didn't let the sadness swallow her. She wrote in her journal instead, "I am building myself brick by brick. No one can take from me what I create alone." And then one night, just like the rainy day years earlier when the bus soaked her shoes and a spark of defiance woke inside her, something shifted. She solved a problem she had been stuck on for weeks. A breakthrough in a program she was building, a sleek, efficient scheduling system for small local businesses. She stared at the screen. It worked. Not luck, not accident. Work. Persistence. Understanding. She sat back in her chair, breath unsteady. Her chest warmed before she even realized she was smiling. She whispered into the quiet room, "I'm doing it." And the walls, the small, cracked, imperfect walls, felt less like confinement, more like beginning, the kind of beginning that is chosen. One Sunday morning, during a lull at the cafe, a woman in a navy blazer stopped at the counter. She ordered a cappuccino, the foam dusted just lightly with cinnamon. Her laptop bag had a tech company logo stitched on the side, a startup Mila recognized, a good one, a growing one. The woman paused before leaving. "You're Mila, right? You made that public bus app a few years ago?" Mila's breath caught. "Yes, I did." The woman smiled, not indulgent, not surprised, impressed. "My team could use someone with your mind, if you're open to opportunities." Mila's heart beat once, twice, slow and deep. She didn't jump, didn't burst, didn't panic. She simply nodded. "I'd like that." The woman slipped her a business card. "Email me. We'll talk soon." As the bell above the cafe door chimed behind her, Mila looked down at the card in her hand. Not a gift, not charity, not permission, recognition, real, earned, hers. That night, she didn't study to prove herself. She studied to prepare. The difference felt like stepping out of shadow into her own light. She no longer needed home to validate her existence. She no longer needed to be chosen to belong in the world. She had built herself, bit by bit, line by line, day after day. No applause, no audience, just quiet strength. And quiet strength, when it grows long enough, becomes unshakable, the door that opens. North Star Logistics Systems was tucked between a bike repair shop and a warehouse that always smelled faintly of motor oil. The sign above the glass door flickered like it was struggling to stay lit, like the company itself, Mila would later think. Small startup energy, mismatched chairs, whiteboards, half erased, an espresso machine that hissed louder than a steam train. Mila stood in the lobby, backpack on one shoulder, resume printed on regular paper, no fancy formatting, no portfolio packet with glossy bindings. She had emailed 3 nights ago. Got a reply 2 mornings later. "Come in. Let's talk." The receptionist, a tall guy in a beanie named Theo, glanced up from his laptop. "You're Mila, right?" His tone was friendly, like someone who had once worked customer service and never unlearned how to soften his voice. She nodded. "Evan's been waiting. He gets weird when he's excited about something. Just heads up." Mila blinked. "Excited about me?" Theo grinned. "You'll see." He led her through an open office desks cluttered with energy drink cans, sticky notes, crumpled sketches of flowcharts. A few developers huddled around screens, headphones half on, arguing softly about something involving servers. At the corner desk, a man in a slightly wrinkled shirt was staring intensely at a map on his monitor, not just staring, glowering at it. "That's him," Theo whispered. "Our fearless leader, or stressed leader. Same thing." Evan Carter looked up. His eyes were sharp, not in the cold way her mother's had been, but in the alive way, like he was constantly assembling and rearranging the world in his head. "You're Mila." He said it not as a greeting, but as a conclusion. "Yes," she replied, setting her backpack down. He motioned her over. "I won't waste your time. We've been stuck for 6 months. Route optimization, fuel efficiency across distributed delivery zones. Every candidate we've interviewed has tried and failed. Our algorithm still burns money instead of saving it." He exhaled, rubbed his eyes. "I heard about your bus app. The dynamic routing one. You wrote that alone? Mila nodded, unsure how quiet to make herself hear. That's why you're here, Evan said simply, pushing the chair toward her. Show me how you think. He stepped back, not hovering, not doubting, inviting. Mila sat. The screen glowed with data. Routes, fuel loads, traffic patterns, warehouse dispatch timings, a mess beautiful in its structure, chaotic in its inefficiencies. She felt her breathing settle, the same way it did when she opened her laptop at night in that tiny Alberta Street room. She began. Lines of code unfolded under her fingertips, clean, steady, precise. She rearranged priorities, reweighted congestion variables, rewrote one of the heuristics entirely. Someone leaned over behind her at some point, one of the developers whispering, "Wait, she just removed the constraint penalty? Can you even?" "Shh," Evan said. "Let her do it." 3 hours passed like rainfall, constant, rhythmic, absorbing. When Mila finally hit run, the map recalculated in seconds. The new route shone like a ribbon, drawn smoothly across the city, grid no overlap, no excess, no waste. Fuel costs dropped, travel time shrank, efficiency rose, the numbers blinked on the screen. Silence, the kind that fills a room before something changes. Theo let out a low whistle. "Holy," the developer behind her just whispered. "We've been trying to do that for months." Evan didn't speak. He sat across from her, studied her. Not the way people had studied Lena, with awe and expectation, but with recognition. "You didn't guess," he said quietly. "You understood." Mila's fingers curled slightly in her lap. She wasn't used to being seen like that. Evan leaned forward. "Do you know what you just did?" She shrugged, uneasy with praise. "I solved a routing inconsistency. It's a common." "No," he interrupted gently. "You solved our company's survival problem." The room felt suddenly larger. Airy, like someone had opened a window she didn't know was there. He stood up, walked toward the whiteboard. Then he turned back to her. "Mila, I don't want to hire you." Her heart stilled, but he smiled. "I want you as a partner. CTO. This company needs someone who can see structure where others see chaos." Mila stared. The words came slowly, disbelievingly. "A partner? Yes. Co-founder." His tone was matter-of-fact, not grand. Real. 45% equity, full authority over technical strategy. "You'd build this with me." "Not for me." Her throat tightened. She saw her mother's kitchen, the backyard table, the glasses raised to Lena, the words, "You don't deserve help. You are average, invisible." But here, in this scrappy little office with mismatched furniture, someone was offering her a seat at the table she was never allowed to approach. "Mila?" Evan asked softly. She inhaled, and for the first time in her life she did not shrink her voice to fit the room. "Yes," she said. "I'll do it." Relief flickered in Evan's eyes, followed by something like certainty. "Good. Welcome to North Star." Theo cheered. Someone clapped. Someone else said, "Finally." But Mila didn't hear it all clearly, because in that moment, what had once been dismissed as useless, unremarkable, sweet but invisible, had become the foundation of a future she was shaping with her own hands. She walked out of the office that evening into late afternoon sunlight. Alberta Street glowed gold. The air smelled of coffee and possibility. She didn't look back. The world, at last, was looking toward her, becoming herself. North Star grew faster than anyone in the office could track. The old, flickering sign was replaced with a sleek black one, trimmed in silver. New departments formed. Contracts rolled in first with local distributors, then regional freight networks, then, quietly, entire national carriers who needed someone to save them millions they were bleeding through inefficiency. And at the center of it all was Millihan's steady, voice calm, eyes that saw patterns and solutions before others finished explaining the problem. She didn't raise her voice to be heard. She didn't need to. People listened now. One afternoon, during a quarterly strategy meeting, Evan leaned back in his chair, tapping a pen against his notebook. "Our new contract with Atlas Freight goes live next month," he said, glancing at Mila. "They want you in the launch meeting." "Not me." Mila blinked. "Me? You're the reason they signed," Evan said simply. "They want to hear from the person who built the backbone of the system." There was no spotlight to step into, no applause, but she felt it. Respect, clear and unforced. After the meeting, Theo chased her down the hallway with 2 cups of coffee balanced precariously in one hand. "Okay, CTO lady," he teased. "When you're a billionaire, don't forget about us peasants who watched you debug code while eating stale bagels." Mila smirked. "You mean you want me to buy you a house? Just a yacht?" Theo said. "Something casual." Their laughter echoed warm against the glass office walls, but success didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like breathing more easily, like standing somewhere with room around her, like not needing to justify her existence. When North Star closed a nationwide logistics contract, their biggest yet, the company held a celebration. Nothing extravagant, just rooftop lights, cheap champagne, and music playing from someone's portable speaker. Mila stood off to the side, leaning against the railing, watching the city stretch beneath them lights, blinking like signals across a map. Evan joined her. "You know," he said, sipping his drink, "people think success feels big, explosive, like fireworks. But it's quieter. It's this." He gestured to the night air, the soft laughter behind them. "It's knowing you built something real." Mila nodded. "It feels steady." "Yes, exactly." He paused. "You've changed more lives than you know." She didn't respond, but she carried the words with her. Asterisk, asterisk. The first time she saw the house, she didn't intend to buy it. She had just wanted to breathe somewhere that wasn't city exhaust and boardroom ceilings. Lake Oswego was calm water, like glass. Pines swaying, slow and deliberate, sunlight scattering across the surface in warm coins. The house stood quietly at the lake's edge of timber beams, wide glass panels reflecting the tree line, a porch with room for just 2 chairs. Not large, not showy, but open, air and light and space. The realtor smiled politely, prepared to make a pitch. Mila simply said, "I'll take it." The realtor blinked. "We haven't even discussed." "I know." No hesitation. No calling home to ask permission. No seeking anyone's approval. She wired the payment that afternoon. Money she earned. Money no one could claim credit for but her. Moving in felt like shedding a skin she had outgrown long ago. There were no ghosts here, no echoes of closed doors or quiet shame. Just cedar wood, clean lake air, and silence that felt like belonging. She furnished the space slowly, piece by piece. Wooden shelves she built herself. A desk facing the lake. A kettle that whistled softly in the morning, life without rush. On the largest wall in the living room, between 2 tall windows where morning light fell, brightest she hung a single frame. Inside it was her old bus card, scratched, faded, bent at one corner. The card that had once meant waiting in the rain, being overlooked, being unseen. Now it meant something else entirely. The first step, the beginning of choosing herself, proof she had found a road where no one built one for her. One evening, Harper visited, kicking off her shoes at the door. "Oh my God," she said, wandering through the space. "This is like a Pinterest board that makes you feel emotionally stable." Mila snorted. "That's oddly specific." Harper pointed at the framed card. "And that's either minimalist art or a deep personal trauma statement. Maybe both," Mila said, but she smiled. They drank tea on the porch. The water whispered against the dock below. A loon called across the lake, its voice long and haunting. "You happy?" Harper asked softly, without turning her head. Mila took her time answering. Yes, she said. I think I finally am. Not ecstatic, not euphoric, not trying, just present, whole. Asterisk, asterisk. At night, she sometimes walked down to the water, letting the lake lap gently at her shoes. The air was crisp. The stars reflected in the surface, hundreds of them, trembling slightly with each ripple. She remembered the kitchen table, the laughter that didn't include her, the sentence that broke something open inside her. You don't deserve help. How strange, she thought, that the worst wound could become the doorway to her becoming. She whispered to the water, voice nearly carried away in the breeze, I did it. Not to prove them wrong, but to acknowledge herself. The journey had never been about revenge. It had been about returning to her own life step by quiet step until there was no place left inside her where she felt small. The lake shimmered softly, like it understood. When they come back. The knock came on a late autumn morning, when the lake was still covered in a thin veil of mist, and the pines swayed with a slow, thoughtful hush. Mila had just finished her coffee, sitting on the porch wrapped in a wool sweater, notebook open beside her. It was one of those quiet mornings where the world didn't demand anything, until it did. She opened the door. Lena stood there, hair unbrushed, coat fraying at the sleeves. Eyes that had once been bright with certainty now dulled, like glass left in the rain too long. A suitcase sat on the steps behind Hera, silent confession. Mila, Lena's voice cracked. I didn't know where else to go. For a beat, Mila didn't speak. She looked at her sister's face, searching through memory and time. Paris had carved her down. Dreams can be heavy when you have never learned to carry their weight. Come in, Mila said quietly. Inside, Lena walked slowly, her eyes roaming the room, the wooden beams, the wide windows overlooking the water, the framed bus pass on the wall. You really did it, Lena whispered, awe and envy braided together in her tone. I always thought, I never imagined. Mila poured her tea without comment. Lena cupped it with shaking hands. It didn't work out, she finally said. The school, the pressure. I wasn't. Her voice trembled. I thought I was special. You are something, Mila said gently. But being something isn't the same as being prepared. Silence settled soft, but full. The next day, their parents arrived. A silver SUV rolling down the gravel drive like an omen. Diane stepped out first, wearing pearls, though one was missing from her left ear. Richard followed, blazer wrinkled, his smile already reaching too wide, too eager, too late. Mila! Darling! Diane spread her arms as if years of silence could be erased by a gesture. Mila didn't step forward. Richard let out a forced laugh. Look at this house! Our little Mila has become such a success. Well, we always knew you had it in you. A sentence shaped like praise, edged like denial. They entered without being invited, as though the house belonged to the idea of family rather than the reality of it. Lena sat at the counter, hands wrapped around another steaming mug. She didn't speak. Diane walked the room slowly, assessing possessions the way a crow assesses jewelry. Finally she turned, placing a hand gently strategically over her heart. The roof at home is leaking, she said softly. We've had a rough year. Your father's hours were cut. The Paris tuition loans, we just can't keep up. She blinked, eyes glistening just enough. We were hoping, maybe, you could help. Just until we get back on our feet. Just until, just a little, just like all the small ways Mila had learned to disappear. Richard chimed in quickly. Of course, only if you want to. We're so proud of you. Truly, Mila. Always have been. Mila looked at her mother, then at her father, then at Lena, staring down at her cup as if the tea could hide her shame. She thought of the kitchen table, the celebration where she was invisible, the sentence that carved her open. You don't deserve help. In this warm, glass-walled home she built with her own hands, she felt the past arrive like a shadow behind her shoulder. But she did not step back into it. "I will not be paying your debts," Mila said calmly. Diane blinked. "Mila." "And I will not fund your repairs," Richard stammered. "But we, your family." Mila's voice stayed steady. "Family cares for each other before there is something to take." The room went silent. Lena's breath caught, but she didn't speak. Diane's face hardened, just slightly. A crack in the performance. "So that's it?" she whispered. "You would turn your back on us?" "No," Mila replied. "You turned your back first. I just stopped waiting at the door." Diane opened, her mouth closed it. Richard reached for some final plea, but Mila lifted her hand gently. "I hope you find your footing," she said, truly. "But not through me." She walked to her desk, picked up her phone, scrolled. Deleted their numbers, deleted their emails, one by one, clean and quiet. The sound was small, but the break was absolute. When they left, no goodbyes were spoken. Lena lingered at the door, eyes wet, suitcase again at her feet. "Mila," she whispered, voice small like childhood. "Can I stay?" Mila looked at her not through the memory of rivalry or comparison or pain, but through the truth of two girls raised in a house where love had been rationed like winter coal. "Yes," she said, "but you work, you learn. You rebuild yourself. I won't save you, but I won't leave you." Lena nodded, relief and shame, and something like hope trembling together. The door closed. The lake continued its slow, steady breathing. Inside the house, two sisters sat at a wooden table beneath morning light, not healed, but beginning, facing them with gentle justice. The hall at the Rosebridge Convention Center shimmered with light golden chandeliers, catching the movement of evening gowns, polished shoes, quiet ambition. It was the annual STEM Futures Scholarship Gala, the kind of event where donors spoke in warm, rehearsed tones, and award recipients smiled for photographs under banners of promise. Mila stood backstage, hands resting lightly on the podium notes she would not need. She wore a simple black dress, no sequins, no jewels, nothing that sparkled. The confidence was already in her posture, in the way her breathing flowed steady and deep. From the wings, she could see the room, professors, executives, young students with wide eyes. And in the very back row, almost unnoticeable unless one was looking, sat Diane and Richard. They were smaller than she remembered, or perhaps she had simply grown beyond the place where their judgment could reach. Lena sat beside them, spine straight, her gaze already fixed forward. The host called Mila's name. Applause rippled, genuine, warm, full. Mila stepped onto the stage. The microphone adjusted to her height with a soft click. She waited not to gather herself, but to allow the room to come to stillness. Time obeyed her. "Good evening," she began, voice calm and low. "When I was growing up, I took the city bus every day. Rain, snow, long delays. I used to think of myself as someone just waiting for schedules, waiting for approval, waiting to be seen." A soft murmur of understanding moved through the room. She continued. "Eventually, I built something to stop the waiting. A routing system. A tool to make movement clearer and kinder. And that became the beginning of a career I hadn't dared to dream of." She let the words breathe. But this is not a story about success. Her eyes moved gently, never sharply, toward the back of the hall. It's a story about silence, and how silence can shape a life. The hall quieted further, the kind of silence that leans in closer. "Sometimes," she said, "the people we love most teach us to shrink, not because they hate us, but because they do not know how to see what does not shine loudly." She did not mention names. She did not need to. "In my life, there was a momentum moment where I asked for help. A small amount, enough to start school. And I was told I did not deserve it. A soft shift, a few brows furrowed. Chairs creaked lightly. It took me years to understand that they were wrong. Not cruel, not evil, just wrong. The entire hall was still. And now, Mila said, her voice warm, not trembling, not angry, just sure, I have the power to help in the way I once needed. The host blinked. The board members straightened. No one had expected this. Mila continued, I am donating $80,000 tonight. A gasp small, but unmistakable. Not as charity, not as spectacle, but as recognition. For the girls who already have the strength and only need someone to believe that their quiet brilliance is real. Her hand rested over her heart. To every girl who was told she was average, or invisible, or just not enough, this is for you. May you never again wait for permission to become who you already are. She stepped back. Silence. Then, like a wave rising in slow motion, the entire room stood. Applause surged, not loud and chaotic, but deep, resonant, grateful. Mila didn't bow. She simply stood soft, steady, grounded. At the back of the room, Diane's hand slipped from her purse. Richard's shoulders fell. They were not angry. They were undone. Not destroyed, just exposed. Faced with the truth, greatness had grown right in front of them, and they had not seen it. Lena noticed this. She gently pressed her hand over Mila's bus card necklace she had begun wearing, matching her sister's framed memory at home. Her eyes shone anew with jealousy this time, but with something like awe. When the applause softened, Mila stepped down from the stage. People reached for her hand, thanked her, told her their daughters would remember her words. She smiled, gracious, consistent, whole. She walked past the crowd, past the flashes of cameras, past the formal congratulations. Toward the back row, Diane rose, tears forming, trembling. Mila, Mila placed a hand on her mother's arm. Not cold, not tender, balanced. You don't need to explain, she said. Diane's lips parted. Can we try again? Mila's gaze held hers warm, but steady as lake water. You can try, she answered, but I do not return to places where I am asked to disappear. Richard swallowed. We were proud of you, just not until I was useful to you. Mila finished softly. I know. They stood in silence, different now, not like the silence of old. This one had truth in it. Mila touched Lena's hand. Ready to go? Lena stood. Always. They walked out together. The air outside was crisp, the night sky clear, stars scattered like quiet promises. No revenge burned in her chest. No triumph screamed for victory, only peace. That was the justice. Not punishment, but the undeniable existence of her own worth. And the world finally had seen it. Peace, not victory. Rain drifted soft and steady across Lake Oswego, the kind that wrapped the world in a quiet hush instead of drowning it. The water rippled gently, pine trees bowed in slow rhythm, and her house glowed warmly from within. Mila stepped onto the wooden porch, blanket loosely around her shoulders. The air smelled of wet cedar and earth, familiar now, comforting. Caleb followed behind her, 2 mugs of tea in his hands, the steam rising in delicate curls. You always come out here when it rains, he said, offering her a cup. She smiled. Old habit. Caleb leaned on the railing beside her, shoulder brushing hers. His presence had none of the hungry weight of admiration or dependency. He didn't need her to shine for him to see her. He didn't need to be needed. He simply stayed. It used to make me feel small, Mila said quietly, watching droplets dance on the surface of the lake. The rain, the waiting, the cold. It felt like life was always happening somewhere I wasn't. Caleb tilted his head, listening the way someone listens when they care to understand, not to respond. And now? He asked. She inhaled the scent of lake water and soft clouds settling over the horizon. Now it feels like breathing. She let the rain speak for a moment. I used to think peace meant winning, proving myself, showing them. Caleb didn't ask who them was. He didn't need to. But peace, she continued, is just being, choosing myself without needing to defend why. Caleb set his mug down and wrapped his arm around her gently, not claiming, not shielding, just sharing space. His sweater smelled of rosemary and wood smoke, the simple scent of someone whose life was grounded. You don't owe your past anything, he said, except maybe remembering how far you walked away from it. Mila's laughter came soft, almost a sigh. Do you know, she said, eyes tracing raindrops racing down the railing, when I was younger, I thought surviving meant always being strong, always pushing, always fighting. But surviving can be. She searched for the word, then found it. Tender. Caleb nodded. Soft doesn't mean weak, it means safe. They let silence settle again, comfortable, shared. Inside the house, the framed bus card caught the faint glow of lamplight, the symbol of everything that hurt, everything that saved her, everything that made her. Not a wound, not a trophy, just part of the map. Caleb brushed a stray curl behind her ear. We could go out on the lake when the rain stops. Take the canoe. Just drift. Mila smiled easy, unguarded. You always want to float, she teased. Yes, but this time I won't row in a circle. You say that every time, he grinned. One day I'll prove you wrong. She leaned her head on his shoulder, not to hide, not to lean for support, just to rest. The rain softened to a whisper. The world was quiet. No unfinished conversations tugged at her. No battles waited to be fought. No ghosts haunted the edges of her voice. She had walked through hunger for approval, through silence that bruised, through absence mistaken for love. She had built from nothing, not to be admired but to be free, and now she was. Caleb spoke softly, like one speaks inside a cathedral of stillness. What do you want tomorrow to look like? Mila watched a lone loon glide across the lake, its movement effortless. Simple, she said. Warm breakfast, work I enjoy, laughter, maybe bad coffee if the machine breaks again. And tonight? She closed her eyes, letting the rain kiss her skin. Tonight, she whispered, I want to remember that I made it, not as a triumph, just as truth. Caleb nodded, tightening his arm around her just enough. Then, that's enough. The storm passed slowly. The lake breathed. The woman who once waited in the rain now listened to it, unafraid. No need to return, no need to triumph, no need to prove anything to anyone. She had herself, and that was peace.